if I hadn't been doing what God had called me to do, I never would have written that song, because I was thinking back to Thousand Oaks, California, which is where I grew up. I love it, but that's not where God has called me going forward. And so like I can look back and think of how nice and how comforting it was, and how I know it really well, but God has called me and given me a mission and purpose.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us. Okay, so we are really excited for Father's Day coming up, and you have a baby.
It's my first Father's Day.
Your first Father's Day. I'm so excited for you, because my husband and I were in that almost the exact same position you're in last year. When was your little one born?
November.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Willow was a little bit younger, but yeah, that 6-7 month age.
It's the best.
It's the best. They're like smiling on purpose, like all sorts of good stuff. Is she sitting up yet?
They look at you when they're going to the bathroom.
Unbroken eye contact.
Yeah, just a power move.
Is she sitting up or?
Oh yeah.
Is she crawling around at all?
She's starting to push up.
Okay, you're in the golden days where she can sit on her own but not move. Oh, sorry. Mine's running, so I dream about those days.
Do you have to like put like soft things on all the corners and?
We figured out she's pretty hard-headed.
Yeah.
She's pretty hard-headed. And she takes after her mother. I also am hard-headed.
There you go.
So, concussions, maybe.
Yeah.
But is she still running? It's fine.
Yeah, sutures and all that stuff, yeah.
I fear it's in her future, but not yet, thank God.
Sutures in her future. There you go. That could be a song.
Next line in a song. So what is the best part of being a dad so far?
Man, that is, there are so many different things that I love about it. One is just, every day she wakes up with a smile. And I think that, there's like the magic you lose, unfortunately, as an adult, like of just the wonder of like, oh my gosh, this red mallet is incredible. I'm going to play with this red mallet. Like it's so incredible to see the little mind firing off, and learning about everything, taking her in the pool. Just everything is new. And so that's one of my favorite things to see her learning and then growing. I love reading to Sophia, and I do a lot in Spanish. My wife does more in English, and just trying to we want to give her the tools that we can give her. It's like there's a part of me that woke up when she was born, and that was like I've sang songs about the Father's love, but there's something that like you're holding this baby and you realize she has done nothing for me. Like she can't talk, she can't say I love you, she can't, all she does is cry and poop and sleep, right? But I love her. And I would give my life for her. And that was like a weird realization of like, oh, that is what the Father's love is, right? Like that now I'm on the other side experiencing it. And so it's really cool. It's inspired different songs, and I wrote her a song. It's called Vuela. But to me, it's a very special song. I started out as a joke. It's kind of like Mexican, what is it called? Just traditional style, and so it's different than a lot of stuff people have probably heard from me. But it came out. I bought a classical guitar, and it was natural, and so it's just a lot of things that I want her to hear growing up. And like one of the verses says, like, be strong and brave like your mom. And I'm translating it. Sé fuerte y valiente tal como tu mamá. Está bien llorar, pero ríete más. So like it's okay to cry, but laugh more in your life. And so I think, giving permission, hey, for a little kid, you can cry, but life is more about laughing. Life is more about finding the good in it. And so I'm really excited to share that with her. Like when she would cry a lot in the car or anything, we'd put it on, and she would stop crying. She would be like looking around, like, and we have videos of her like staring at me while I'm singing it to her. And then, so it's like either that would calm her down or Taylor Swift. So, yeah, I mean, kind of the same.
Yeah, basically the same. Basically the same. Switching more into one of your newest releases, the Agradarte de Vino de Sara Costa Rica. Okay.
Agradarte. Muy bien.
Say it again.
Agradarte.
Yep, that's true. That is how you say it. So you wrote that song in Spanish, which so I've done a lot of traveling. My husband and I backpacked for 2 years before settling down in Florida. So we went all through Central America and a bit in South America as well. So we lived in Costa Rica for a little bit. We lived in Honduras. We lived in Mexico and all sorts of different places. And I would hear so many Christian songs, worship songs, being sung in English or being translated. And you're like, oh, well, that kind of fits, I guess. But obviously, when you're using different words that, don't rhyme like the English words do or whatever, there's got to be a disconnect. So what is it, like, or tell me your heart behind writing a song in Spanish?
It's like a weird thing. Like, so I'm not Latino. My parents don't speak Spanish. And I learned Spanish in middle school, high school, studied in Spain, Costa Rica. I mean, I like lived, breathed it for like 8 straight years, from the time I graduated till 2020. And it was this weird thing where like God would and continues to inspire just songs in Spanish that like sometimes like even the song I wrote for my daughter, my label was like, oh, you should do that in Spanish or in English. And I'm like, well, I wrote it in Spanish. There's not an English version of this song. Like it loses its poeticism. Like there's something unique, and it's like you don't need to make another version of everything. And so writing in Spanish to me is like I surprise myself, but I really attribute it more to God has given me a unique gift to be able to communicate maybe it's because I'm not as fluent as like a native speaker. Like I have a very good vocabulary because I read a lot in Spanish, but I simplify things, and the way that I connect things might be more of an like from an English perspective. Even though grammatically it's correct, there are different ideas than might come up from a Spanish speaking brain. And so I think that might be an advantage. I might just be making that up, but I've translated a lot of songs as well, and having a really good understanding, obviously, of English, I bring that into the Spanish and make sure that it captures the heart of the song. So it has to rhyme, it has to fit in the in the metric in the rhythm of the song, but I translated Do It Again. And I did it with a team, and part of the team brought in the first line, and it was like, muros rodeando estoy, like I'm walking around these walls, tú los derrumbas hoy, like you're going to make them fall today. You make them fall today, is the literal translation. I was like, that you missed it. You missed the tension of the song. Like music is about, like there's got to be a payoff. The payoff is like, there was something, like I was walking around these walls because of something, and I'm still waiting. I'm still unsure, but it's faith. Like this is the key to this song. And so if you don't have an understanding of like, and the more you write, the more you understand that there are patterns to all of this. And like that is why there's such incredible writers in Nashville. But something someone said to me was that you have to live to write. You can't just like, it's not all theory. You have to go experience things. You have to have your heart broken. You have to like have these elated, amazing experiences. But if you live in a sanitized room, you might be able to learn the pattern, but not connect. And so I've been very like, the songs I've written have not come out of like, oh, I really hope that Latinos listen to it. It's like some of my best friends are Latinos. Like my church is all Spanish speaking. When I I was just in Peru a few weeks ago, and I'm flying and I'm looking at the mountains. I'm going to Cusco, and then I'm going to a town called Curahuasi, and like they speak Quechua there, which is like the Incan language, and I'm with people and I'm speaking to them and I'm learning about their experiences. It just like it like goes in, it gets jumbled around, and then it's like a concoction comes out. Like it's like this, all the ingredients for God to use and to like, and then I get to articulate something to other people. I mean, one of my favorite songs that I've written in English is called Comfort Zone, but I wrote it in English and Spanish kind of simultaneously. In Spanish called Nunca Más Atrás, like I won't go back. And I was in Ecuador. I had been touring for like 6 weeks in Argentina, Chile, Bolivia. Got to Ecuador. I was like, I just want to go home. I just want my bed. I just want my food. I just want my things. And I woke up from a nap. I'm looking out the window, and I just heard God say, like, don't go back to your comfort zone. And I start weeping, and this song comes out. But it was like, if I hadn't been doing what God had called me to do, I never would have written that song, because I was thinking back to Thousand Oaks, California, which is where I grew up. I love it, but that's not where God has called me going forward. And so like I can look back and think of how nice and how comforting it was, and how I know it really well, but God has called me and given me a mission and a purpose. And so it came out through that song, and so it's kind of a I can't give a like, here are the 5 steps to writing a great song in English or Spanish. But I know that like through experiences, if you're a songwriter, you will have that. And especially if you love something a lot, like you just, I love Spanish, I love Latin America, then it's natural for songs to come out that way. I'm not forcing it. I don't sit down and like, I'm not like, man, I really need to write a good Spanish song. There are ideas that come out. Like I have another song called Más Rico del Mundo. I had a hard time. I couldn't translate that line. It means the richest person in the world, like richest man in the world. And I'm like, it just doesn't sound good in English. So I left it in Spanish in the song, in the English version. Because perfect. That's what it is.
Because it fits. That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so I have, like I was mentioning, I've traveled a lot. You've obviously traveled a lot as well. One thing that I'd like you to share right now is a travel tip that you might have. Like, for instance, my travel tip is pack light. As light as possible. You know, you can get what you need where you're going if you don't have it. But, you know, if I can travel in a backpack, that's best case scenario.
I don't know if I actually really have that many, because I've never been able to travel light, because I bring a guitar a lot of times, and then I have merch or gear. So my travel tip has actually been stick with the same airline. I live in Houston, Texas, where I fly United almost anywhere in the entire world. And because of the loyalty, it's a little bit more expensive, but I get upgraded. I get 3 bags up to 70 pounds. So, and everybody on my reservation gets that. So when I go with my band to Peru, we can bring, I mean, if it's 8 of us, we can bring 20 something bags, and like, I mean, just way down the plane, right? And so we all get to pick our seats. We all get to get food. Like there's those things because of the nature of how I travel, like mostly fly dates internationally, that have made it more comfortable. But I don't know how relatable that is going to be to
No, I think
everyday.
that's great. I mean, I think the average person is flying a lot more than we used to, but sticking to the same, because my husband and I did the opposite. Like, we have traveled so much, but we have always just gone with the easiest, cheapest airline in the moment, and we reap none of the benefits. We are peasants when we fly.
That's what I call people.
Yeah, no, 100%. We are peasants. We're in the back of the plane. We're by the bathroom. We get split up when we have the baby. It's like I'm sitting in a middle seat with a 1.5-year-old, and he's like 10 rows up, and like, sorry, everybody. Yeah. It's not great.
So my other thing is, like, because I fly so much with United, I get a phone number to call. And so if I need to change my flight today, I just call them, and I'm on the phone with them in 2 minutes.
No.
Christmas, when it was like, Snowmageddon or whatever, when nobody could get out of Nashville like 2 years ago, I'm on the phone with them in 2 to 5 minutes. And I'm like, do this and do this. And it's like, that is why it is absolutely worth it to me.
I have been on, like, waiting on customer service lines. Oh my word. The amount that I would pay you for that phone number.
Yes.
Like, That's gold. That is
Yeah.
worth its weight in gold.
I
That's
live
amazing.
30 minutes from the airport on a toll road, so I know I'm gonna get to the airport in 30 minutes. I have TSA pre-check. I have clear.
Yes.
I have global entry. I don't waste my time like sitting trying to get through these lines and everything. And so to me, also another thing, I'm not promoting this, is some of the credit card, like you can get into these lounges that like people think, oh, it's like $600 a year, $700 a year, but through like Uber, like paybacks and like other type of paybacks, I'm banking in on Amex, banking in, and they don't pay me to say that.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. All right, I want to shift to our disco ball of fun. I wrote most of these questions. I had some help. Some are fun, some are deep thinkers. But
Some
how
are
about
from
it?
your traumatic past of how you became a superhero.
We're trying to get into your traumatic past,
Okay.
actually.
How have you been influenced? What have you bought?
Okay, so that's specifically like Instagram, TikTok. What have you seen that's popped up in your algorithm, or maybe somebody you follow? Anything?
I think like I don't really like small things. I like really expensive purchases. Like I want cars or watches that I'm never going to wear. I'm never going to wear, so I don't buy them. But my wife falls into this all the time.
Okay, now actually I want to know what she buys because I will probably buy it.
Yeah. Well, it's a bunch of baby stuff.
Yeah.
It's just I'm like,
Yeah.
do we like you know, there's the dad like, oh, I want to give everything to my kids, and the other is like, we have a budget. Does our daughter need another toy?
Okay, what's the most recent thing? Or maybe the most ridiculous. I don't know.
Well, we bought one of those bouncy things, and then she didn't really like that. So that's the thing is my wife's like, well, I can always return it. And so I don't really know how to say no when it's like, yeah, I mean, if she doesn't like it, then we can return it. But I was influenced not by social media to buy a security system for my house when I was 26.
Oh.
And this guy knocked on my door. He influenced me. And he was like, hey, do you want to buy a security system? And I was like, nope. And he's like, what do you do for work? And I was like, oh, I'm an artist. I travel a lot. He's like, you probably have a lot of really expensive things in your house, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I got guitars and like recording gear. And he's like, be ashamed if somebody broke in and stole your stuff.
It sounds like he is a salesman and a thief.
I spent $5,000 on a
my word.
security system that I later realized just calls the police. So I have been duped by a guy who was very kind, but that was probably the worst time it made me a lot more cautious to buy things that other people are like
Yeah.
selling, pandering.
We all have to learn that lesson. Yours was just $5,000. So,
Over a contract of 4 years.
oh my word. All right, let's go with another one.
Okay. When is the time you have been brave? Oh. Well, I felt brave in the hospital when my wife had to get a C-section and I had to go in there and just act like everything. You're going to be okay. But I really think like if we're going to measure the bravery in this occasion.
You can both be brave. You can both be brave.
Yeah. I wasn't cut open. I wasn't the one with the baby in me for 9 months. But like my respect level for my wife shot through the roof. Like for women, just to like see, I was like, thank you, Jesus, that I am a man and I have my own things that you have made me to carry. And like my wife loved it. Like she loves being a mom. Like obviously wants to have more kids, so it wasn't, I mean, but I think that was a moment where like seeing my wife on the operating table and she was like so sick, she was like throwing up and everything, and I'm just like, I have to like tell her everything is okay. Was really hard. But definitely I'm not saying babe, that this was any harder than what you were doing.
No, I totally hear you. And that's great. But it really is. I mean, I think especially from your perspective, like for her, the other option of maybe not getting a C-section is much, much worse if things aren't going right. Right? Like, was it an emergency kind of situation?
Yeah, we had to do it.
So that, I mean, yes, it's scary, but it's got to be done. So I can understand how that might just be like, yeah, let's go, take me. But from your perspective, to actually see it all happening, and trust me, you don't have the same hormones flowing in your brain that the women do. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember labor and delivery because God blessed us with that little hormone that like takes a lot of it away. There are things I remember, but for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So I think for you to be brave in that moment, your wife needed that so much. And so where did you dig it up? Where did it come from?
I think that's just like an innate thing as a husband.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be there for them. Like, you're not the one. I mean, maybe it was a birthing class or like, somebody told me that like your job here, and like I love the practicality of it and directness. Your job is just to support her. So like, she wants ice chips, go get ice chips. She wants this, just do it. And like, just, whatever she says to you, she doesn't mean, like all the things that they said. So it was more like understanding my role as like the best husband I can be at this point is just there, supportive. And so, yeah, but it was intense.
I bet that really helped for like the newborn days too, right? That same kind of advice.
Yes. Yeah. Especially having a C-section. Like you the first thing was like, we hadn't slept in like a day and a half. And then they're like, all right, Dad, well, Mom can't get up. So change diapers, learn how to do origami and like, swaddle the baby. And I would like film them and I could not figure it out. And then like we finally got home and we just had like the Velcro. And I'm like, okay, next baby, we're just bringing this in.
Mm-hmm. So smart.
So I have another thing that I've been brave in.
Okay.
And so I'm from Southern California. And when I felt God call me to Latin America, I drove to Tijuana. And
he said, yes, Lord.
I said, Lord, I will go. I do not. The city is difficult because it's a lot of, prostitution, drug trafficking. It's a lot of violence. I think there was like again, like there's a little bit of a like chemical blindness in your youth of like, what can go wrong, right? If God's but the Bible says, if God is for me, who can be against me? And if you are calling me to do this, you will provide, you will protect. And so
it's having faith like a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever went to Colombia, I did not know a soul. I had emailed the pastor, hey, I don't know why, but I feel called to go to Colombia, to Bogota, and I will sleep on your couch. I will clean the toilets of the church. I'll do whatever. I just know that this is where God's leading me. And it was there was, even when I studied in Costa Rica, I remember the first night being like, this was the biggest mistake. I need to go home. And there was something that I had to overcome and be like, okay, if God has called me here, I need to finish this. And so I don't think bravery is this thing where it's like, you just, you go into it and there's no fear. It's that it's a realization of like, there is something more important than my fear or my discomfort. And that is the goal. And so I want to stay and endure and act despite the discomfort and the fear.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.